where it came. And then for baseball is 55 and softball is 34. And those include T-ball, which boys T-ball has 13 and girls T-ball has 9. So 31, 55, 34.
Do you know how many we have for soccer last year?
36.
Oh, good.
And well, I guess I should.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but yeah.
I had to stand up and then just hold it.
There's one that is numbers there, Steve.
Okay.
31, and then the baseball's 55, softball's 34. And then T-ball is boys 13, girls 9. As far as age ranges, I didn't break it down.
This is closed. Next week? Closed next week.
For
Soccer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll probably send out another email tomorrow or whatever, just to remind people about that. Oh, I didn't put baseball. Baseball closes March. Oh, was it 14th? I think is what I said.
Well, they got ways then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and I mean those are adjustable. Obviously, you can just.
Yeah.
That's just what. Yeah, you have to put a date in there for. Yep.
Yeah, we got 9 numbers right now.
8.
8. So we go over 4. Okay.
I think Chris is the only person not playing. Only person that responded anyway.
Okay.
What's your position called again?
Parks and Rec manager.
Hello.
Hi. Can I sit there?
You might be okay if it's down that way. But I don't know if that's the broken one.
No, that's chair.
It's like sitting on the
It's
floor.
low to the ground.
We'll make it quick tonight, and we'll be good.
I think they've broken them the way they
Well,
want.
that doesn't look like it's a little loose.
We're good.
Giant paper receipt over there, the shelves.
Oh, yeah.
I just glanced at it.
Well, and it could have been a typo on my end. Very possible.
You guys go ice fishing anymore?
I went yesterday. Yeah, just for a couple hours over with the beaver.
Oh.
Yeah. Just a small bite. Nothing big. I was hoping to head back up to Clark County next weekend, but turns out my father-in-law's 60th this Saturday, so. I'm apparently supposed to cook for the party. I should probably be there for that.
Maybe you would like to go ice fishing. My
You
father-in-law.
can only have a fish fry if you got fish.
My father-in-law flew in from Florida actually on Friday.
Oh, my
this
goodness.
week. So
It's gonna be a shock.
he he was actually, on Wednesday, he was fishing in the Gulf of Mexico or whatever and caught a huge grouper. And then on Friday or Saturday, we went ice fishing or whatever. And he caught a pretty nice bass and walleye and stuff. And I was like, you're just living the dream.
Those groupers would be fun.
Oh, it was huge. I'll show you a picture.
Are you guys gonna go there in May? Don't you?
Correct,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure we always go the same.
Yeah, we do run into each other a lot, you're right. No, I will actually, May 29th through the,
That's when we're going
oh, you're
at the
good?
same time.
Awesome, where are you flying, Tampa? Or-
Yeah.
Nice, we'll be on the same plane then.
We just had to take all reservations from last year and move them to
Yeah.
this year.
Oh, thank goodness.
That
That is,
we
some
caught
luck.
some little bass, crap.
Robbie. That's a good one.
Yeah, there's some decent ones.
I would take it, well, you know, if I don't have a full day, just hit the family park or something. But if you fish there, it's really never catch anything, so.
I've heard they caught decent there, and then they went to, what's that, Cherry, something, I can't remember what it's called in Sioux Falls there, Cherry
Yeah.
Pond or whatever. I think you have to sneak on that one, but I think they've done good there too.
Put the bundle on this year.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, I call this meeting to order. So, any additions or approval to the agenda, or any additions to the agenda? I have a few here, maybe. So, my question is for Steve's report, do we want to just add new business item that says Park and Rec Manager report, and that can all encompass like the sponsorship, the concessions,
Yeah,
the note home, just an update about registration, all of that?
let's
Can
do
just
that.
be-
Where do you
Let's
want to
make
put
that
it?
A.
We can just, under A.
Okay.
And then did you want to remove an action item? for the
Yeah, so I want to
playground?
remove the, what's their Loud playground. We'll just replace A with Parks and Rec report. Then I'll, for next month, I'll try to remember to put that under reports.
Okay.
Have that as separate item.
And I think concessions, I don't know your thoughts, Nate, but concessions can probably be its own item here now with, it's gonna start to ramp up.
Yeah.
Okay.
What be its own item?
Concessions,
You want to put that as G?
sure. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? I think I have a motion to approve the agenda with changes.
I motion to approve it with changes.
In a second,
I'll second.
seconded by Whitney. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries, or all opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Any visitors to be heard? Seeing none, minutes of the January 3rd meeting.
Just one note on this one, we didn't have a quorum in February, so it's not an official meeting, so this is just kind of a recording of the discussion about that meeting. Because there was no quorum, no action was taken.
Any changes to the minutes from January 3rd? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 3rd?
A motion to approve.
Can I get a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. No old business, new business. So we're starting with Park and Rec Manager report. Steve?
Yeah, hopefully everyone grabbed them there. Soccer registration opens January 4th. It's closing here this next week. Right now, I checked today, there was 31 registered. T-shirts are good to go. I just gotta get the sizes in order. It's $6 a shirt from Coda Lettering. I did not know if we wanted to say Park and Rec, I guess was the only. I don't know if the previous ones did.
I think some have and some haven't.
Yeah, if there's a decent design for it, maybe.
So then that's the picture of kind of the.
But none of the baseball or softball, anything says Park and Rec.
No,
No,
So
the T-ball.
I think,
No.
They just say
Just say
softball
Lennox.
for the softball ones.
yeah, I don't think it needs to say.
Sounds good. And then I did send out a email to Parker and Viber Curly and Marion. I believe there was a parent that asked, so I sent one to there that just kind of said what we offered or whatever. I have no idea if any of those 31 registers are from there, I guess. I don't know.
So one of the concerns with that, and we talked about at a meeting being inclusive of all people who register, but what we need to discuss is the tryout team. And if we're going to allow individuals outside the Lennox School District to also be eligible to try out for the tryout team.
But that would just be baseball.
Correct, for baseball, yeah. Because do we want it for inclusive just in the rec program? The problem with it being baseball, and Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, because we talked about this already, but we researched if we had another school add for our tryout, it pushes us into a different class if there's enough kids in that school district, even if they don't all register for our programs. So then instead of being class B, it would push us to class A, and so then we would be playing bigger teams. And so that's the concern with allowing those kids to play for us for the tryout team.
So is that, I took a snap or a picture of what it kind of said, and it says, like, the way I looked at it is, they did not have a team, then it wouldn't count. Did you read that or no?
I read it a little bit on Friday. I didn't have much time to look at it.
Did you call the BMW director though?
I called the guy and he sent me just a picture of what it was, and then I pulled the documents, and that's what I sent you. But from what I gathered with us and Viber early, I'd have to look at what the ADMs are, but I think it's over 500. I was thinking it was like boys and, because for football they do it by boys.
Right.
So I assume with baseball they do it by boys, but I think it's like total. And I think if we join with Viber early, if we bring Viber early kids in and allow them to play on our travel team, I think we'll still be under it, but I need to read it a little more closer.
So the only other thing with that though is, so we're saying yes to Viber Curly, but then we've got a kid from Centerville, Parker.
When it says if they have their own team, they have to get like a release, and that goes into a whole different, then they're considered a pickup player and all these kinds of stuff. So if they don't have a team, then it's, they can go to kind of whatever.
So we have enough kids usually.
Correct.
So why are we, I would just say no.
So no to try out or no?
No,
to the
for the travel team,
Just to the travel?
Just the traveling team,
Okay.
right?
So that's kind of what,
Well, if you're gonna invite them to join our program, which I believe we changed our policies and procedures to do, I think it's a pretty terrible thing to say, well, you can play on a Park and Rec team.
But why?
Well, what's the end goal? We're here for the kids, right?
Right.
So at the end of the day, what's the goal of each age group? Like when my kid tries out for 10U this year, like his whole goal is to make the travel team.
Okay.
As a participant of the Lennox Park and Rec baseball program.
Okay.
So these kids that come over from Viber early, their goal should be the same thing, regardless of where they reside. If we're gonna include them in our program, and by rules with the VFW, they're allowed to participate in our travel program, why would we not want them to? If they're the best 10 kids that can represent the Lennox Park and Rec baseball program, let them play.
so every time we have a new team that's interested, and reevaluate our numbers. And that's gonna be a lot of additional work. Also, I think the reasoning for us removing the inclusive verbiage was to get kids outside playing. It wasn't to get them on the travel team. It was, hey, if they don't have a place to play ball and they wanna play rec ball, they can come play here.
Yeah, but they can play here for a certain amount of time, just not at the end of the year. To me, that's a pretty crappy thing to do with a kid. I'm not on your board, you guys can make whatever decision you guys want, but I think it would be, I think you'd be doing those kids that you're trying to include a disservice if you tell them that they can participate in our rec program, but they can't participate fully with the Lennox Park and Rec Baseball. They're still gonna have Lennox on their jersey. They're still gonna represent our community, whether they live here or not.
Is there any, the folks that contacted us from outside of Lennox, is there any indication of, do they want to do the tryout team, or do they want to get involved in the summer?
It was pretty minimal because I didn't want to guarantee anything, so my response was, I'm gonna wait until this meeting. I mean, honestly, I will say she's a teacher in Worthing, is who contacted me, and it looks like there's like, she said 4 to 5 kids probably.
So they would be in our school district, right? Do they live in Worthing?
No, they live in Bible Curly. Her kids, she commutes, correct.
To Worthing to teach?
Correct.
Okay, so they live in Bible Curly School
Right.
District.
And I know she talked to Griffin last year, so we had a lot of conversations about open enrollment and stuff. And I know they've pushed that around, I don't know, I mean.
So what about we have a kid from Sioux Falls that comes every year, how does that affect our numbers?
And that's, I was gonna say that, like, my
Well,
kid's gonna come from
whenever we
Timber.
get to 14U, he's gonna either have to be a member of our school district, or we're gonna be bumped up into the next highest class. Playing against Brookings and Yankton and Sioux Falls, the way I read the document.
So if we make a decision to allow them to be on the travel team, and that kid decides to try out, it could potentially push us into A.
If he makes it.
It'd be double A, right?
Yeah, it'd be double A.
We
I
are
think we're in A
We
now.
are A, cause the
That's
ADM,
what I was confused about. I thought we were in Class B, but we're actually in Class A.
the ADM for Class B is like 150, so we're.
Yeah. And I think it's
And then you
five,
gotta get-
and I think it's 500.
499 or so, yeah, something like that.
And again, I was confused because I was looking at it as, well, it's a boys sport, so the only other pure boys sport is football, so I assumed they went off male ADM, but they actually go off the total school ADM.
I don't know that I'm ready to make a decision on that if we don't know for sure all of the VFW rules well enough to be able to say, we can be inclusive of this group and not this group, and we have to reevaluate every time we have a kid interested, or if they decide they wanna try out, we have to change the way we're doing our policy. I don't like that. I think it needs to be clear cut, and I wanna be inclusive of other communities to just play baseball, but I don't know, I mean, the reason we went away with that inclusivity was because there was some concern with other towns taking tryout spots for baseball. That was the reason that was changed, that whole policy. So, I don't know what
Well,
everybody.
and looking at it how it is now, didn't this kid from Sioux Falls make the travel 10U or 12U team last year?
He did.
So we probably, as a organization, should have played in a higher level last year with.
That was only 10, you know.
Yeah, but 10U follows the VFW state tournament
But
rules.
you said only in 14U if we went over.
Well, the VFW has a set of rules. We were talking about 14U. So VFW has a set of rules based on where you draw your players from. So I'm fine either way. I mean, if you guys don't want the other kids on the travel team, that's fine. But I would have a clear-cut rule that just says, if you come from outside of the Lennox School District, no matter what, whether you push us over or not, no matter what, you don't get to try out for the travel team, just be upfront with those people. But that's gonna include the 10U, 12U, and 14U.
I can say that there would be some upset parents if kids from other towns made the tournament team and local kids didn't. I mean, I realize they're better players, so they probably deserve to be there, but I think that would,
Well, then that kind
that
of.
would be upset a lot of parents.
There's two ways to look at it, in my opinion. I mean, you can look at it like that, so then now we have these kids that can't play on our travel teams that are taking away opportunities during the regular season as well. So I mean,
We made that decision already.
Yeah, that they can play.
Correct. We've changed our policy in the fall. So I feel like it's up to the parent when they go to register and they see your child can play rec ball, but they cannot try out for the travel team for Lennox unless they're in the Lennox school district.
And if that's is that your policy currently?
We don't have one currently for the travel team.
But if we're bringing Viber Hurley in almost, like, it sounds like exclusively, right?
Well,
I mean-
I forgot about the Sioux Falls kid.
But I
So
mean,
there were 5 kids?
Ish. Now, I didn't know, like, I mean, I know they do, like, if we get enough kids, and especially in that 14U, if you would wanna do a 13U team and a 14U team, I mean,
At the end of the year, they play together.
well, but I'm just saying for like tournaments in the Sioux Falls, like SEBA stuff, they have all those things broken down even more, so I don't know how you would balance that either. I understand, the VFW obviously is the state tournament, but.
In the past, we've shied away from going the 13U or 14U route just to try to keep our teams as even as possible.
We would just add more 14U teams.
Well, we've tried not to split them up. Which is when I was on your board, I was 13U, 14U, we've tried to kind of mingle them together because typically at that age, the 14U kids are all competitive, just try to keep them even.
I feel differently than Chad, which is fine. I just feel like if we have enough kids here, and if the kids want to come play, I don't feel that it's being unfair to the kids coming out if it's clearly stated from out of town. That's just my opinion. I think that if we have it open for them to come play the rec, and when it comes to travel team, my thought is if we have enough kids to be Lennox School District inclusive, I think that's fine. But that's my opinion.
Well, we could give it a summer and see what the feedback is from parents, coaches, people from other towns. So, what do you think?
Did you say that if they didn't have their own program, it won't affect their numbers to bump us up?
No, they can't come play with us. So if there's a team over in Viber Hurley, they can't come to Lennox without the Viber Hurley. It gets really sideways.
Okay.
With letting them come play with us.
So like Parker has their own team, I know for
Right,
sure.
yeah.
So that none of those kids could come unless they wait and got a release, and then we'd have to sign it, and it has to get like approved by the league, and there's
Right.
no, I mean,
Well,
it
should
happens in
that-
amateur ball, but it's not gonna happen in
Right.
team U.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, shouldn't that Sioux Falls kid have to been at least then too?
he should, from SEBA,
Well,
I mean, from,
that's different because this is VFW 14 is different than VF12U and 10. There's just,
once he gets to 14U, he will have to. 10U, I think
But
that
didn't you just say that 10U and 12U
It
are the
is.
same rules?
technically
whenever it
should.
comes down to what size they are, but not as far as
Not
the
the
releases.
Yeah.
Welcome to the joys of
It is
VFW
very
baseball.
wishy-washy, I will agree with that. Does that kid come to school here?
The Sioux Falls kid, no, he does not, to my knowledge.
But
They
is he-
talked about moving, I don't know if they.
I mean, he's not in like Sioux Falls, but Lennox School
The whole
District or
thing
anything
last
like
year
that?
was they were trying to buy a house in Lennox.
Correct.
They wanted the kid on the team because they were trying to
Oh,
get him
okay.
involved with the Lennox School District in hopes to move, but they hadn't found a house, is my understanding.
Yes. And we made an exception, because at that time our policy, well, I don't know if it was written, but we had a policy that somewhere stated at some time that we wouldn't allow outside of the school
Right.
district. And so we made an exception for this kid because the parents said they were gonna move here. He made the travel team and that caused some issues.
Right.
So I don't think we can go back on, we could, I think it would be a negative thing to go back on the inclusivity of just the rec side. Because we've already communicated with those schools, we decided it as a board, we took it out of our policies. I think for that piece, that has to stay the same, unless someone disagrees. But what do we
And
want to do?
when I reached out to other schools, I only included soccer, like I didn't say
Sure.
in baseball or softball or t-ball or anything. So.
How
That's
many
probably one of
programs?
them that we need the numbers. I mean, last year we had 4 going at a time is all. You know, 2 years ago, I think we had 6 players at a time. So I think in
And
that
that's-
case, that's a good,
Oh, first off.
For
Yeah.
soccer,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I
I just-
think the more numbers we can get for that.
How many 14U baseball kids is that?
It's usually 14. There were 14
Is there?
last
Okay.
year. 2? No, there were
4
more than 2.
full teams.
Yeah,
We
we
have
had-
some
Of 14U?
Well,
Yeah.
last year it was 12U, but now it'll be 14U. And we have 4 full teams.
That's
We have
Well,
that many
12
for
and
10U
14.
too.
But last year for 14U, there were 2 teams.
Yeah,
But now
But
the
now
12U
this
teams
year-
are gonna be in the 14U.
yeah.
How many towns that are within driving distance of coming to practice here do not have a baseball team?
Viber, Curly, Davis,
I mean, there's, yes, I would guess maybe
Chancellor.
But those
But
two
Worthing and
don't
Chancellor
count.
are school districts, so they're,
Why, but Chancellor sometimes has baseball teams of just Chancellor.
So does Worthing.
Chancellor,
Or Worthing.
from what I hear, Chancellor's going to have a problem with baseball this year because of issue at their facility, so.
Yeah, I think they're doing some remodeling or something.
Yeah.
But because of where they, because of the school district map though, they can try out.
I honestly, I have no idea. I know like, for, you know, Beersford, they have theirs, Parker, I know has one. I know Marion had one last year, I don't know about this year's.
Could we write it to be like, could we write something to say that, hey, if you don't have a team, like as a Viber Gurley, right? Their kids can come play rec and they can try out for a tryout team. But if you have your own team, such as if you were in Sioux Falls or something, you can come play rec ball, but you can't try out for a tryout team. Does that make sense? Just because they're gonna have a chance to even, they can't choose Viber here, they don't play at all.
They could choose Beersford.
Or they could, I guess, yeah. But I'm saying if they go to Beersford, and Beersford lets them, you know,
What
Try
else,
out their
what is
try out their
Beersford?
child team, so we're kind of holding them back by it, it's kind of a,
What do Beersford, Canton, T, what do they do?
Well, I know like Beersford for their high school baseball team has like Beersford,
Alcester,
Alcester Hudson, Viber, Curly, Centerville.
They take every kid. I know.
Do we
Madison,
take every kid in
Wisconsin.
high school?
No. We have not. I know we were approached a few years ago for some Viber early kids who are actually very talented. One signed to play baseball down in Nebraska, the other one will probably be in the Big Ten as well, and we told them no for Legion baseball and high school baseball standpoint.
So we're essentially just making up different rules for 3 seasons. I mean, right?
Well, we have no control over Legion, what the
Well,
Legion
right.
does and what the high school does.
But, I mean, when they get to those higher ages, I mean, essentially we're just bending the rules for 10, 12, and 14.
And I think it would be a lot easier to include those kids at the older levels if they started playing here at 10U, 12U, 14U, and they just become a part of our program.
How did this come about?
I think because they saw that I was the
Just this
park and
one
rec person and she's a teacher and she just shot the question, to be honest with you.
And they're not currently playing anywhere?
Nope.
Haven't?
She said they have about 4 to 5 kids in that age group that would love to play,
But
but they don't have a team, so then what happens is they go and recruit 4 or 5 of their friends to make a team, and then last year they last year was so weird, but they played 1 game and then like 2 didn't like it and they quit, so then they were down to like 7 or 8, and then they got a new, just consistency I think is what she's looking for.
And aside from these kids, we needed to develop this policy anyway, because we really don't have it written specifically what we're doing for the tryout teams. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, I don't know that there's anything, it just says we're inclusive and basically they can do either right now. What were you gonna say?
I'm not really sure.
That's all right.
No, I'm just thinking, like, if we have I understand like soccer because it's a smaller program, let other teams in, or other kids. But I don't know, I just look at baseball and I just think there's so many kids. But
And it's okay to push our kids to be better and beat up some out-of-town kids. I mean, we don't have to like water down the competition to just allow the Lennox kids.
I don't think that's what it's about.
it's about,
Well,
you know,
then what is it about?
It's about the kids in the Lennox
But
school.
once we include them in our program, they become our kids.
And we should have had that discussion when we talked about being inclusive. You were here for that. Why wasn't that brought up?
I just assumed once we were inclusive, we were all inclusive. Like
And we should have talked about the VFW numbers, which was something that I don't think us as a board really understood. I don't feel comfortable with bringing in kids outside, and that pushes our kids to AA, and now they're playing bigger schools, and we're subjecting our kids to that, a higher level, just so that we can include other towns.
So couldn't you put something in there like, he said, they can try out if they don't have another team, but maybe put a stipulation, but not if it brings you to a new level.
But it would take a lot of kids. I mean, we're only at like, what are we at now? I mean, we're talking 300-ish kids, whereas Viber Curly probably has an ADM of 70.
So the 150 that you told
We
me
can
the other
take
day.
4 towns and still not.
That was for B.
Okay.
Correct. We're already AA. I know that for a fact.
Yes, I learned that after that conversation.
I will agree, like, there's gonna be pissed off parents if your kid doesn't make it in a Viber Curly team. I get that.
But once, again, what we have to wrap our minds around is once we include them in our program, they now become our kids.
I think if it's told to the parents ahead of time that, yeah, you can be Lennox, you can play on our team, but this is for rec. Like if you want your kid to play baseball, they can come play baseball here. But the tryout team is for Lennox School District. We probably should take action on this tonight, just so that Steve can move forward. If anybody has.
And I honestly don't know if she's even interested in the tryout team, but I mean, I can see them coming and be like, I can see them coming and being pretty good and be like, hey, why don't you go out with a tryout team, you know?
Well, that's what will happen if you include them in, I mean, just, our coaches are competitive. If we have a kid from out of town that's really good.
And I honestly have no idea if they're good or bad, and that's not part of the discussion, but I can see that.
But you know how it
Right.
They're
It
gonna
just
wanna,
needs to be well communicated.
Right, and that's
To
what
the
I
kids,
think
to the
up front.
And I
parents.
honestly said to her, I have no idea, we have a meeting on Sunday, I'll let you know, and that's where we're at with it. And I think she's open to, I think her being involved with Lennox School District is why she wants to come here, because she knows some of the kids they would be playing with, versus going to Beersford or, you know, some of those, I think that's her thought process behind it.
I'm curious what she would say, or what those kids would say, if we said you can play ball here, but you can't try out for the tournament team, if that would change their mind.
Right.
And if it doesn't, and I mean, we need to decide for all kids, we can't just make a decision based on these kids. So that moving forward, if you have somebody come ask you, we have a decision
Right.
made. But I'm curious if that changes it at all.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do other towns open the programs like that and do tryout teams?
I know Beersford does for sure.
Because then, I'm just saying, if I was back in school, I went to Viber and we didn't have any baseball. I wish we all did. We tried to go to Irene and they kind of shut us out. Their coaches didn't give a crap on us and let us play. A couple of us just gave up. We really did. So if I was going to go play baseball, or my kids were, and if I lived out of the district, they said, hey, you can come play, but if your kids are too good, they can't make this team. Or if they would have made it, they couldn't play here. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And most kids would probably say, let's go somewhere else.
Right.
I don't know. I think if we're going to open it up for them to play rec, I think they need to have the opportunity to make the next step too.
and in the history of Lennox, Lennox has always taken on larger competition. I mean, even in basketball, they used to play all the AA schools. Lennox never shied away from playing higher level than what we are.
And you would have to take 3 or 4 schools to get all the way to AA.
Or a Sioux Falls kid.
Or, yeah, correct, or, you know, a kid like that would definitely probably have to say no, because, like you said, I think with the option of like, you have your own team, you know, that should be your team, sorry.
We have to plan for the Sioux Falls. I'm not talking about that Sioux Falls kid, any Sioux Falls kid, especially with our new development. There's gonna be parents that they haven't moved here yet, or they're moving here, they don't have an address here yet. and they want their kid to start, that's gonna come up again. So I feel like we have to make this decision based on, our numbers could be pushed, cause if we add just one kid from Sioux Falls, that puts us in a AA, right?
For that team, it goes team by team basis.
But if the rule is that it's someone that doesn't have a team in his town, then that defeats that, so Sioux Falls has teams.
Right.
So we're talking Viberg, Hurley, the smaller communities, which aren't gonna push us to that next.
Right.
Right, but we already have one Sioux Falls kid, we've had one Sioux Falls kid, so
Well, I
what
think
Brittany's
that-
saying is with the new development, there is possibility of more people like that.
And I think we might have to say, you know, this year's not gonna work, next year.
Once you're in the district, you're in.
Right, I mean, and the thing is, I mean, that stinks, but like this kid, he said he was coming, and I mean, how many years do we say, oh, you're still coming, right?
I think what Steve's trying to say is like, if we make it where we're saying you can try out for the tournament team only if you don't have a team back home. And so then we're not including then Sioux Falls and
Right.
Petersburg. We're really only including in Viber Hurley if there's kids that wanna play there and Parker.
And I mean, looking into that, you know, if we get those kids, like you said, at 10U, 12U, 14U, you know, maybe baseball, they split for high school, depending on if we, but what if Legion, they come back, amateur baseball, they come back. You know, I mean, you start creating those relationships, you might get a lot more kids. I don't know how many numbers the amateur team is, but, you know, talking with, that's always a up and down type thing, as kids graduate, it's hard to get kids involved.
How old were these kids? They were all 14?
They were all, I know, 13, 14, I know, right in there, yeah. I think she just, there's, like I said, there was 5 groups, and then they kind of kept coming up together, and they love baseball, and they just don't have any place to go right now, is what she's saying.
And I know the older kids that are in Viberg early that still continue to play baseball, they go over to Harrisburg and play. So it would be a lot closer for them to play in Lennox. But
Yeah, I think if they don't have a team, we should let them play.
Let them play,
Yep.
both, play what?
Let them play everything. Try out whatever, if they don't have a team. But if they're from a place that has a team, then because that's their option.
More than likely,
I don't want kids having a team, right?
right,
No.
more than likely, if they're gonna come from Viberg or anywhere, any town that doesn't have a team, if they're gonna start young, it's just like Chad said, they're gonna work and they're gonna play, whether they make the travel team or not, and they're gonna play through high school, they're gonna stay with the same group of guys, you know, same group of players all the way up, they're gonna become Lennox high school baseball players.
I mean, I've seen those kids transfer schools. You know, they play summer ball. I've seen young kids play summer ball, and when they get to high school, they transfer. They open enroll, and they become Lennox high school. So, I mean,
I know of 3 or 4 of our high school boys that didn't play much here football that have transferred to Viberg early to play football there. So, I mean, I don't know, so.
We should take action on this item so we can move on. Does anybody have a motion?
a motion to be inclusive for players who do not have home teams
Can you be more specific?
to play on our rec programs and our child team programs.
And is this only for baseball, or does it also include softball?
I would say all sports.
We need to do it across the board. I think we need to get away from splitting. So there's a motion on the table. Is there any discussion? Oh, you
I
just
second.
second first.
Who second?
Any discussion?
Do we need to add just in case, as long as we do not go over our current classification?
Well, we wouldn't, because none of the schools that have this
Right.
would do that to us. There's just not,
But what if Gertrude doesn't have a team when
their Beersherd's not gonna not have a team.
Canton used to not have teams when we played?
I even think with Canton, I mean, we'd be in that 450 range, but I
just wanted to be sure.
It's not a bad thing to put in there.
I mean, if we're worried about the classification, that's our,
I would put something in there that if it pushes you over to
Just
the
to
higher
cover it.
classification, it gets reviewed again by this board.
Bump to the
Yeah,
higher
something like
range.
that.
We have a right to review all kids that make the travel team.
Yep.
Something like sure that with this, if it passes, that there's really good communication for all parents that are registering their kids from outside. So if we have a kiddo tomorrow that registers from Canton, that we're emailing that parent and saying, you know, here's the deal, you can play rec, but because you have a baseball team in Canton, unfortunately they can't make the tryout team. We're taking your money, I wanna make sure you're aware of that ahead of time, so that we do that good communication. It shouldn't be that many kids that we can't have that personal communication. Any other discussion? All in favor? We'll just go around. Whitney? Okay. Or just say yes or no, I guess. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
And this is as long as they don't have, right?
Right.
That's what we're saying? Okay,
Correct.
yes.
Okay, so motion carries. That's 5 to 1. I don't count.
You can vote.
Yes.
So what was it?
6 to 1.
Okay. Moving on to,
I guess baseball, softball, they're open February 9th. There's 55 signed up for baseball right now, 34 for softball. T-ball, there's 13 boys and 9 girls. It will close, I didn't put that on there, March 14th. I plan to send another kind of reminder out here this week, I'll probably try to send one every week just to make sure.
can you, what closed March 14th, sorry?
The baseball, softball will close March 14th.
Okay, and T-ball's included in that.
T-ball's included, I'll probably open it once we get closer, just because I know it's not till later, and just give a T-ball registration out.
I registered my kids the other night and it worked, the registration process was very easy. Looked good.
And note when home in school, hopefully your kids brought it home.
Yep.
No. Not that I know of.
Yeah.
Just have the website on.
I did contact the paper, did anyone see it in the paper?
I haven't seen the paper, I saw what came home.
I saw the paper.
Was it in the paper? Okay, and I'll maybe try her again. What, Kelly?
Kelly.
Then going down to concessions, a few things we had talked about was a new hot dog roller. My understanding is one broke. I found one, I don't know, that whatever it is. And then a nacho cheese dispenser was something else that came up. And then they haven't been purchased yet because I don't know how to do a purchase order, but I'm working on that. So.
I think the old hot dog roller is still in Jason Foss's garage because he was gonna fix it. So you should just see the new one.
Okay. You know, if you fix
They had a wedding at their house, I bet it's not there anymore.
And then the sponsors, I did have one person kind of reach out that he would love to be a sponsor. I don't know, I guess I'm looking for just guidance on, have you guys asked for amounts or whatever they want to give? T-shirts, would you want them on there, not on there?
If you're gonna put them on t-shirts, it can get expensive.
Right.
Because if you have like a different sponsor on each shirt would have to be made separately.
No.
So like banners, something like that.
For example, like T has, their 4 main ones, boom, 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 on every shirt. And I'm not a huge fan of that, are you gonna get more sponsors if you do that type of thing? My thoughts were by the concession stands, you can throw up a blah tag board with them on there, and every person's gonna see who it is, and, I'll be honest, a little peer pressure helps with sponsors. It's the truth.
So I think any amount is fine. I know just from doing fundraising in the past, if you have a tiered amount system that you're offering to them, you're generally gonna get more money than if you just leave it open. So I think if you give them set amounts, typically in the past, I believe it was $250, does that sound right, Chad, for business sponsors? I think that's what it was.
I think that's what it was.
$250, and so then that, we tried to say it like at tournaments over the loudspeaker, and then also, it would go on the website. And then, depending on the amount, we have there's a sponsor donor wall too on the concession stand, but that's a permanent, that they help with like the baseball field. So, for now, I think just on the website, and then in the future, if we want to put them on t-shirts, Steven, if you get a quote for that, I think that's fine. I don't see why not.
Okay.
I don't know what anybody else thinks. I think some, like for junior football, it's each team gets a sponsor. I don't know that we need to go that route, because I don't know how well that would go. I guess it works well for them, so that's something we could consider. But you kind of ordered the soccer shirts, right?
No, I'm not technically, just because I don't have the size. That's just the price he gave with the little picture or whatever. So
Oh, sure.
I can ask him back and see what
You
it
can
would
see
be.
what it is to put it on the back, and then you're right, if people see that, they'd be more likely to donate if they see
Well, I
it
feel like there's enough companies that are here that are doing well, that, I feel like one letter, and if you get nothing back, whatever, I guess, it's, just a matter of sending a, letter, I think.
Yeah, we, in the past, we haven't really sent letters, but that would probably garner a lot more attention than just, right now, what we do is we just, on our registration, so it really just goes out to parents that are registering their child. That's all we reach at this time. And so it's, if you have your own business and you're interested in donating either as an individual or as a business entity, then you can do that. But we're not reaching Lennox and other businesses that maybe don't have a kid that's still in baseball. So however we want to, go ahead and.
I guess, is everyone okay if I put something together and run it by you guys, and like I said, or even if it's just an email or some sort of whatever, just to.
We could pretty easily get that out to the commercial club.
And that, like you, I know with that, like Nielsen, when he built all the houses in T, he threw a big chunk of money at T. And I know he did. And I know in Beersford, Jerry's puts money towards Beersford's park and rec stuff. So,
I put a distribution list together for the pool that's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
long, and I don't know if you guys have a copy of
I
that.
think we do.
So I
Have
can
a copy of the
look
ones
for
I
that.
gave.
yeah.
What'd you say?
I have a copy of the ones I gave.
Oh, yeah, so I think what I did then is, and I don't know if Dawn would be, I think it was Dawn or Evelyn, they sent it to a company that addressed it and stamped it and sent it for us.
Yep.
So maybe they could do that, and then
Gotcha,
we wouldn't
yeah.
have to handwrite everything and do
Sounds
it
good.
yourself. And they just send the Excel spreadsheet with all the addresses there. The other thing about the t-shirts, we would just, if we do put it on the back of the t-shirts, it wouldn't go on all, so we just would need to communicate that. Like obviously the baseball jerseys, it's not gonna be.
Right, that's what I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
so it would be, it'd be like T-ball and soccer and
T-ball,
AU,
soccer.
but the numbers too, we have to, some of them have numbers, so.
I guess that's all I had. Any questions you guys have about?
Do we need to take an action on the purchases, or can that just be approved?
It's already approved, it just has to go through the.
I just gotta fill out the PO thing. I'm bad at that stuff.
Okay, so Park and Rec survey results.
You've all got, hopefully got a chance to look at the total survey results online. Brittany pointed out that the verbatim responses didn't make it into that first export that I did. It's not really a good way to do that, so I ended up printing those off, and hopefully they're in a reasonable format. I think it's questions 3, 4, 5, and 6 maybe, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And there's a lot there, I think it's over 20 pages, so there's a lot of input there that I think you can go over as you get a chance. I think overall, the survey responses were okay. We didn't get as many responses as we did last year. We anticipated some level of dissatisfaction with last year for a number of reasons. But I think overall, yeah, we're still sitting pretty good. Gotta get the total pulled up here. I think our weighted average is like a 2.1 out of 2.07. And usually that would be a bad score. In this case, the numbers are reversed, so 1 is the best, 2 is the second best. So overall, folks are still pretty satisfied. I think pay some attention to the responses to number 4 and number 6. That's where you're going to get the most critical feedback, I think, in terms of what did go well. Even there, though, I put out that we only got at the same time, there's a lot of really good input there that we can take to improve what we're doing.
Well, from reading through that, a lot of the comments, there is a change that's already been made to situate what a lot of the comments were about. So.
Correct.
Yeah, and you sent these to me, the main one you look through and it's like field time and organization's about every other time. So I'm hoping to get the field, space figured out, to where it's, at least there's some consistency, things like that, where, between coaches and things like that. Just to figure out that communication a little bit better.
I think the biggest things is just the scheduling was a huge piece that kind of dwindled a little bit. And part of that was our software and just really understanding the software. And then communication is huge. I mean, everybody knows that a lack of communication upsets the parents. So they understand if we have technology issues, but we have to communicate it appropriately. So.
Do we have the field space to accommodate what we currently have? It's just a matter of organizing and making sure it works.
I mean, it's busy.
Yeah.
Those fields every summer evening.
That's why I was asking.
But there's
Could
time
we use
available.
2 more fields?
Yeah.
But we don't need
But then you're just gonna ask for 2 more.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're needed, but we could definitely use more fields.
So it was more of an organization or a management for you, not that we don't have the resources. Okay.
And I guess the one thing I did read, there was a few on T-ball, and I don't know when that was decided upon. Like when they do T-ball right now, first inning everybody bats, second inning, if you get out, you're off the field, but you get to bat. Everybody bats.
Needs to listen to this.
Yes,
Chad needs to listen to
this is
this.
an argument that we've had with him.
What? And the
Your
T-ball.
rules are getting negative
Did you
feedback.
come up with the 3 innings and the last one's the 3 outs and all that?
Yeah, that's how baseball's played. We're trying to teach kids how to play baseball.
I
Okay.
disagree
I'm
with
sorry
this.
if it hurts kids' feelings.
Half the
You
time,
guys make whatever decision you want, I'm not a voting member of this board.
I just half the time I had 7 kids on the team anyways, the game was over in 32 minutes.
It's not my fault.
Like,
Yes, I
I
agree
mean,
with you. It should
like-
just be,
we had grandparents after trip and the game was 15 minutes long. I'm not lying, because the last inning, we got, I think, 4 kids on their team batted, we got 3 outs, 6 on our team batted, and the last inning took literally
not let them play.
a minute. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I don't know, if you got them there, why not play for an hour?
Steve, I think if you want to draft some rules for T-ball
Okay.
and present them to us at the next meeting,
Can
do you want our help with that?
I'm sorry?
Like, do you want our help with that? I just think if you draft some rules for
Oh,
T-ball.
no, I mean, if you're there, you might as well play. I mean, I get sometimes it's way too hot, and that can be a coach's discretion, be like, yeah, that was good enough. But like even when we played, because we had kids that one night or whatever, it was like, it's going, yeah, now we can. Kind of, it just turns into, with kids that when it's time to quit, I feel like.
Did you?
I think the reason that, and I'll say Jason Foss helped me with this, the reason we put together those T-ball rules was because there were so many parents that wanted their kids to be pitched to during T-ball, that we wanted to give them a real baseball experience. And that's kind of where that 3rd inning came in, where if you got 3 outs, we celebrated defense.
Gotcha.
I mean, because at the end of the day, if we only let kids bat and run the bases all the time, we never once celebrate the accomplishments of actually making 3 outs.
Well, I don't mind the outs, then, don't put a limit at 3 innings, is what I would say.
Well, how many are you gonna play, 9?
Well, no, I'm gonna play 45 minutes.
Right.
No.
Just keep playing until.
Oh my god.
Oh, what
Is this your first year coaching T-ball?
No, I've coached Griffin 3 years and girls softball T-ball. I'm just saying, I don't know. I feel like a 30-minute game is a waste of my
Where'd my
time.
gavel go? I can't even gavel.
I'll come up with something.
Fantastic question, Madam Chairman.
Did you look at the survey?
Yeah, there's one that says you're amazing. You probably wrote that.
Steve, Well, I propose that you write something
No,
up
yeah.
for T-ball and then bring it back next month and we'll look at it.
Sounds good.
Is everybody else okay with
I
that?
think that's a big.
Okay.
I know we talked about this too, like, T-ball, they went like youngest 9, next youngest 9, and I don't know if that's something we wanna look at too.
I get the thought process, cause you don't want a 6-year-old chucking it at a 4-year-old.
Right.
I get it.
But yeah, we all.
But you want a leader,
Right.
you want those 6-year-olds to be learning from a, you know,
Right.
a 7-year-old,
Right.
and then the next year,
I don't
care either way, I just didn't know what.
No,
it was.
I
That was something.
I know exactly what you mean, it's
I think.
Cause that makes games go fast too.
Steve, I think
The
it just
oldest
got,
kids are
I think
playing
for
the
a
youngest.
amount of time, I think it just got sorted that way.
Okay.
And just schedules it up, cause I know in the past, we kinda split them up a little more evenly.
Cause Nate was the oldest, on the oldest team, and, I mean,
right.
he could have been on a different team and maybe been the leader or whatever, but instead he's on this team and doesn't really have to try very hard, because they're hitting home runs over, you know.
Nope, I know.
Well, like on my
And
team,
there's just like, building your skills
Right.
to take over that leadership role.
and on like Brock and I's team, our kids were the only kids that were second-year kids, and we had all first-year kids.
So
So,
do we want to?
that's just something,
Mix them this
Well, I
year?
guess that was the same, and I talked to, like, about soccer, do you mix them, is that what we normally did?
I think with soccer, you don't have the number.
So you're going a 2nd grader against a 4,
There's
so
like
8-year-old versus a 4-year-old?
in the past, it's been like you try to have each team, if there's 8 second graders, you would split so that each team has, you know, second, is how, it doesn't have to be that way.
No, I just was asking, 'cause like,
Yes.
I mean, I have a 2nd grader in a junior kindergarten, and he can kick her rear end all day. so
Right.
That's what I was
So
like,
that's how it.
is that how we're,
In the years that my kids have played, so,
Okay.
I don't know, I have a 10-year-old.
mix them as good as you can, and the coach should at least pair them up. Okay. That's fine with me.
So, what do we want to do then for, did you discuss the league requirements as far as date of birth and stuff?
I put it on there, it's the 2 people I talked to, Portner from T and, what was that other lady's name? Can't remember, they all told me it's as of the date of 12/31/2020, and that's VFW rules. So that's to play in a state tournament. Now, if you go to like a SEBA tournament or like a different, then the rules are a little different.
Okay.
But I don't know, I just went off the VFW ones, cause, I mean, I feel like our teams shoot more for the state tournament type thing versus the traveling Rooster Classics and all those things in there.
And I thought it was very clearly stated in the registry, like it was bright red.
It was red, now,
Yep.
I still had a few pairs, but no, for the most, now I did send an email to VFW to be like, you know, I think this worked great in the 1940s when they made it. You know, it's gotta be something to look at though, I feel like, cause there are definitely kids that, you know, are gonna be playing that in-between where they bounce back and forth every year. Or, I mean.
So we did it, so you did it for baseball and softball the same, is that 12/31?
And that's coming from those league supervisors or whatever. And I looked at T's website, has that exact same on there, and I can't remember who else. Beerster maybe does.
Okay. That sounds good. And then for splitting up the teams, I mean, that's something we can talk about maybe next meeting. But
Yeah, and I
like
haven't
for
looked.
softball, we did it by age in the past, but I don't know if we want to change that. And then Nate, I don't know, I mean, just because Steve doesn't have a lot of experience with this, and maybe you have coached the older kids, I don't know, but just the whole process of coach selection, player selection, all of that. If we're changing any of that, we need to have it written somewhere.
Like set of policies.
Yeah, we came up with a policy after we had
Did we
that.
change that said that we're doing it, not the coaches?
You're splitting up the players?
That's what I'm asking. Is if we have that written down. I don't know what's written down. I didn't take a stance on it. I asked if we have a policy.
Our current program team shall be rostered by random selection.
Starting to get, I don't understand the baseball with the, so there's 4 park and rec teams and 12 youth, for example, and then there's 1 traveling team,
Yep, yes.
and they come from all 4 of those.
Correct.
So the traveling team does not play together really at all except for tournaments.
They practice together a
They
little bit.
okay.
Once we have the tryout team sets separate practices, so they overlap a little bit for a couple weeks where the tryout team will be practice. So if your kid makes the tryout team, they might have a rec practice, and then the next day they have a tournament team practice.
The only suggestion I would make is I split up teams after probably the 8U. I would say anything after T-ball would be to allow the coaches, because the coaches do a good job of getting together. And Ace Riley can pitch, and your kid can pitch, and your kid can pitch, so they put them all on separate teams and try to make our teams as even as possible. If you do it by random selection, you end up with what happened with T-ball last year, because that was random selection.
But on that same note,
By age.
but on that same note is why I got on the board, is that softball program blew up because of that. Because there was 2 strong-willed softball coaches that bullied and took everybody and had 2 teams and everybody else was thrown off, and then it just blew up. So when I came in, softball was destroyed because of 2 coaches who knew everything and ran everything because they thought they knew better than everybody else, and their parents should have taught their kids about how to play better. And
Well, I would say, like, I like the idea of the team, because I don't know all these kids by any means, so for me to rep, but I think that, like, I would have to be the person that has the final say, like, no, you're getting, you know, to where you almost have to rank the players, you know. I mean, it stinks to do that, but I mean, you have to, otherwise it's not gonna be competitive anymore.
I've never been involved in the softball discussions, but I've handled the baseball discussions when it comes to teams, and all the coaches are.
And we did it for 8U
We did it for 8U, we did it for 10U, we did it for 12U.
So the other thing we don't have, or didn't have in the past, was Steve. And as long as Steve is at these meetings, I don't know what everybody's feeling is on that, and he's making sure that we're doing it in order, and it's not that this coach can come in and take the 4 best players. I just don't want it to be like a draft where we're leaving kids out that haven't played before because we don't know how they play, so we're just.
Right.
That's why these elementary teachers have a huge advantage, because they get to see the kids at school.
Well, I'll be honest, I do ask, like, I've asked Mr. Reich many times, like, hey, how is this kid, like, I've coached basketball, I've coached baseball, flag football, and when I see a name I don't know, I go, it's like, can he run? Can he, you know, I mean, you gotta ask those questions, otherwise, like you said, you're gonna have 10 that have, you know, no pitcher, then what do you do? I mean, you gotta know them a little, but I do think there has to be one overruling person that's like, nah, I don't think so.
And that's why we've never done the 13/14-year-old team. Jason Voss and I had a 4.5-hour argument about this when his kid was a 14-year-old. Because you have to separate the talent. Our coaches do a great job of doing that and being respectful of each other, in my opinion.
So I don't know that that's necessary at the 8U level, because we don't really know where those kids are, and a lot of them are brand new.
Well, the coaches that have been, like, I coached Ace in T-ball for 2 years, so I can tell you most of the kids in Ace's class that can throw and catch. And the other coaches coached as well, and then we split, like when Chris and I and Kelly got together to split up the 8U teams 2 years ago, we just spread them out evenly. I mean, that's kind of why you were pretty selective on who your coaches are.
I agree with
So,
you.
but on that same note, I'm just gonna go off to the softball side, is you beg people to coach. You don't have the plethora of people. Baseball is different. You have and we're trying to make it the same. And that's when I came on 3 years ago, whatever, it wasn't the same. It was Lennox is a baseball town, softball's whatever. So, I mean, we've gotta make sure that they don't have that.
So last year, we split baseball by coach, like the coaches sat down and selected, but then softball, we had a roster, and it was date of birth all the way down. These 8 are on a team, the next 8 are on a team, the next 8 are on a team.
Softball's got a different age date than baseball does.
Not, it doesn't.
What
Not
is
this year, so that changed.
what has our softball program done to go out and recruit and retain coaches?
A ton.
No, I'm just asking,
Yeah,
I mean, are you getting any?
We got out and begged and begged, and the problem is the softball field is horrible. We couldn't get our field dragged, the softball program, we wanted umpires, everything. Baseball program had everything they wanted set up. Outside of the park and rec program, they had things lined up, and those people, I could not want to reciprocate through.
I kind of think,
I mean, even
I
when-
spent an entire Saturday down on the softball field with Chad Wolf, cutting it and dragging it and making sure that it was even before the season even started. Trying to dig the things out of there. So to say that the city and the park and rec department does not back up softball is very, very offensive to me.
I'm not
Because
saying it's
we
the
have.
park and rec department, I'm saying that it's like the community.
Well, that's a community problem. That's not a city problem. That's a parent
But
participation problem.
and we just finally fixed it this year. The softball field should have been fixed 10 years ago. It's
You
the
know how
last
the
year.
baseball field got fixed? Because baseball parents got together and fixed the baseball field on their own time and their own dime.
But that's the problem. It shouldn't be baseball parents think that their sport's better and they're gonna neglect how women's sports are because they think they're boys sports because it's baseball.
No, it's because the parents of the baseball program gave a
Okay,
shit.
I think we're
It's
gonna
figured
have to
it
move
out.
on
It's
now.
preceptions.
Yeah, please.
It's your perception.
Yeah.
Just coming from outside, I think softball's hard because there's so many club teams. I mean, it's crazy in Sioux Falls. You can find, and that hurts. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. Whereas baseball, there isn't. I mean, there's a few, but there is not. I mean, there's 95 of them. So if a kid, if it's not working here, I'll be honest, a lot of those parents probably looked at like, all right, I can pay this much money and I don't have to coach my kid. That's the honest truth.
We're doing a lot this year. There's a lot that's being done for that softball field. There's a lot of,
Coming a long way, yeah.
there's a lot of money that's gonna be put into it, and hopefully we get good support like we have for baseball. We do need to do it the same, and so I don't know if anybody has a motion, if we wanna say that, can I make a motion? No, okay.
You
So-
can suggest a motion.
I would suggest a motion that it's clear across the board and that baseball and softball both are split by coach and Steve Hale's discretion, by a meeting where only the coaches present are able to make those decisions.
I'll make that motion that it's the coaches and with the oversight by Steve Hale, separate the teams.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
Steve, did you second?
Yeah.
Any updates for soccer? And I know some of these might be redundant now that we kind of went through Steve's.
Oh, yeah, I guess I just have what I kind of have on my print, thing with the soccer program. I think last year there was 36 registered for spring soccer. I know it didn't happen. So right now we're at 31. Like I said, I'll probably send a reminder out here. Well, maybe not tomorrow. I don't have school to do it. Yeah, so probably send it out tomorrow, or Tuesday, excuse me. Just to say, hey, sign up and blah, blah, blah. And then baseball, yeah, it's going good. Softball is going good. I don't know, I'm pretty comfortable with where they're at right now. And you guys registered, I haven't registered my own kids yet.
I actually did it before you sent it out, so I was just gonna see if it
Just
was.
to check. Well,
I was testing it,
No,
and then
yeah.
it let me register, so I just did it.
Yeah.
But, well,
And
good, those are good numbers, so.
And I guess I didn't, like the website, I've tried to there's a lot of just random things on there, I'll be honest. So if I deleted something and you're like, wait a minute, where'd that go? Let me know, because some of it is, you'd read one page and then the other page would say something different, and then, so I just kind of started chucking things out, so.
I think we trust you to take it and run with it, Steve, and just make it what you think it needs to be.
Okay. And then, I know it came up, and I think we talked about it, but I cannot remember his name. Luke, is that right?
Luker.
There, yeah. He asked about the board. Did we make a final?
Oh, So we needed to check if we can have somebody outside of the
That used to be inside the school district.
School district.
Is that what, I know we talked about that, I didn't know if we officially had like an answer for him.
I think I'm gonna be over there tomorrow and chat real quick.
Okay, and I think he wants to be involved somehow, so, I mean,
Yeah.
whether
I don't
it's
think
just
so.
sponsoring or, you know, whatever it is.
There was the chiropractor across the street, he's new
Yeah.
here, his business is new here in town, and he was interested in joining our board. But he doesn't live in the Lennox school district, and so I asked Nate to check if that's in our policy. But can he own a business here? He owns a business here.
Would that allow them?
Oh, I think they have to reside within the district.
Okay, okay. And we can talk about changing that, I don't know,
Well, I guess I will say for myself, I don't live in this district.
yeah.
I mean, teaching it, my kids come here, yes, but so I'm,
It previously stated the boundaries of the city limits, and we did that about 2 years ago, and said Lennox School District.
I think it was even more reasonable than that.
Yeah.
It might have been more recent.
Right. Do I need to put this in? Do I need to put this in? Okay, I was like, it doesn't fall under any of these categories.
no, that was just what, I know, what
I'm
came
on
up a
agenda,
while
I'm
ago.
sorry.
It came up a while ago, and we just never really had a meeting, and then it got pushed, and then it just.
If I head over there tomorrow, I'll talk to him.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, we'll move on to baseball, so we needed to talk about, what was it we were gonna put under baseball?
You emailed it, didn't you? Or you texted?
I don't remember.
I got the
I said
date
to
figured
add it,
out,
and
and
you
then the
said-
team split up we talked about, I know that was one thing.
Yeah, the what thing, that was the first one?
The date was just so confusing as to how it was stated, with like when you should, what team you should
Oh,
sign
gotcha.
up for. The only question I would have on baseball is, there have been a few parents that have said, not, you know, now that we actually have an official date, I don't know if we were legal in the past, do you know, like for VFW states and things, like, I feel like some of those kids were playing up when they maybe weren't.
You can always play up.
I should say down is, because one kid, for example, said he played, this
It
would
was
be
that
his third year of 12U baseball. I'm like, well, that mathematically doesn't, you know,
Equal up to your.
so I don't know if she screwed it up and signed up, you know, or I don't know, so.
We were never called out on it in the tournament, so I'd say.
Yeah, don't they?
Well, no,
check all
that's-
that stuff at state tournaments or not?
Yeah,
Well, did we ever win?
yeah, we won.
Okay, then we must be good.
They require birth certificates and.
No, yeah,
all that stuff, so we've never had a problem as far as the age of legitimacy. I would say now looking back on this, having a Sioux Falls kid under 10 years, maybe,
Might have been closer.
skirted the rules.
That was wishy-washy.
Yeah.
He was moving, like, he said.
They were living in the RV park.
Speaking of age, did we decide, are we allowing kids to play up on the travel team?
They're not able to play up, correct, Nate?
I mean, they are through VFW rules,
It feel like.
but I don't know what our,
I thought we talked that we were allowing whatever they try out for, that was
That was the team.
where they couldn't try out for 12U and then not make it and go down to 10U,
You know, like,
right?
we talked about like if they played 10U all year, they try out for the 10U team, right? Wasn't that what we decided?
And that's what I, yeah,
Okay.
as long as it, and that's what I, sorry, I should have asked, that's what I told parents is like,
Okay.
if you sign up and you want your kid to play 12U rec,
Yeah.
that's they can't bump down to be on the tournament team.
I'm pretty sure we
I remember
voted
that being
that.
a discussion, I don't see it on our policy, but I'm pretty sure that's what we decided.
So, do they have an option as a parent to, if my kid's young, I can register them to play up?
Yes, but it's all dependent on grade level is what I've been, so, for example, if you just wanna go up to play with those kids, just cause you like those kids, that's not necessarily, I won't allow that, and I've said that to some, but like, for example, some of those kids, like, for example, if their birthday is January 10th, and they're a 7th grader, they technically could play with the 12U.
Sure.
I mean, so, but they've always played with that team, so that kid, I would say, yes, you, I mean,
Okay.
you're okay. But again, I told them it depends on numbers. If our 12U team has 9 and we need you, it's already.
Okay.
They can't, so, just to clarify, because they normally can't play up if they are cut off from that 12/31 birthday.
No, correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, so just wanna.
Yep.
But they could, in the past, play down. So like if my kid is a 3rd grader and I want him to play down, wasn't that the grade ruling? But is that what the parents are asking? Is that they wanna be in the same grade?
Correct,
Like
right.
the
And I
birth is pushing them to a different.
I said as long as they're in the same grade, I will say that's okay. So for, it
As
was
long
a
as
7th grade
numbers
kid,
are-
correct. As long as
Okay.
numbers allow for it.
So if that's the 4th grade team is, I don't know what 4th grade is, 10U, but my kid's age pushes him up to 12U, and there's room in 10U, you'll put me back down in 10U.
Well, if he.
It'd be the other way, it'd be up
The
to
other way
12U.
around, correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
You can go down, you can't go up.
Correct.
Or you can
The other
No,
way.
Yeah.
Like if he's past 10 as the date, you
Right.
can't. I mean, you have to go up.
Right.
I had my son who, he was, age-wise, he was supposed to play up with like those Porter Enon, Benning, bigger kids, and the coaches let him play down with his own grade.
And I don't think.
Because he was small and he was not good.
And I think now I'm gonna say, your age is this age, you gotta go up.
Because
So
that's
we have to
the
play with the
VFW.
older kids, not in his grade.
Correct. If there's age.
Was he a junior kindergarten?
No.
Well, I just
We
don't
didn't have one.
No, like my niece is like an August birthday, so she's a
Yeah,
junior
my son was
kindergarten.
that way too.
And so she should play with 4th grade.
And right, and I have a daughter that would be that same way, and I know it sucks, but I don't know where you, oh, you can, but you can't. I
Well,
think
he
it's,
didn't have the ability to play with the bigger kids, and they weren't in his grade, so the coaches allowed him to play, they actually put him down.
and I think for a rec team that might be possible, but like for a traveling team,
Yeah.
you are automatically legal.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have an illegal.
That's right, yeah, rec team. I didn't.
So, and I think you could possibly do some, and that, I mean, when you talk about 3 or 4
Sometimes
kids,
I think
maybe.
it should be a case-by-case basis.
And that's-
Husband should not have played with the older kids.
And it says that right there, that Park and Rec has the rule to, case-by-case discussions
Yeah.
and things.
I mean, rules are rules, but sometimes.
No,
So if
but like a traveling team, you cannot, or your team,
Yes.
that kid's disqualified.
So if the parents decide that, let's just pretend it's a 10U kiddo up on going to 12U, and he plays 12U all year, he can't then decide to
Nope.
try out for 10U. I just wanna make sure we have that clear,
Correct.
because that's gonna come up
Right, yep.
during trial.
And I've already had a parent ask.
Okay,
Yep, and I said, the team you sign up for is the team you're playing with.
okay,
And if you don't make it, you don't make it.
yeah, okay. Alright, the baseball thing I thought we were adding was those kids from Irving, so we can.
Oh, gotcha.
Softball, Nate, do you have any softball updates for the field?
No, it's frozen.
Covered some
I
very.
know the
Very
field's
cold.
frozen, but the.
No football falling in the next week.
No plan of action when it
As
thaws.
soon as it thaws, street team is gonna be on it.
Okay.
I think we just need to shoot some elevations and grade it, and then get a bagger line put back down.
Oh, we need to get some, good duties down there first.
Yeah, well, the clay, to get it to crown, and then move our water, and then.
My biggest concern is along the first base
Right.
line.
What about the,
That elevation there is gonna change so much, I think we're gonna have to do something with that.
The dugout, yeah, it's gonna, I thought you gotta just climb out of the dugout.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have steps up out of that.
is there an update on the Excel Energy grant?
We got it. The new one,
The allocation of the funds?
we put 50-50 between Bell Bells and the softball field.
And what we're doing with it though is that,
That's what we've already got processed.
okay, okay, sounds good. I didn't know if the light poles, if that was,
No, although I think it's something we need to
Yeah.
ask their help for. And I think we just got the notification for that grant being open last week, so we could certainly apply again and see if they'll help us out with that.
Can you move some light poles for us, please, pretty please?
And we know we have the equipment. So,
all right, anything for T-ball? We probably need, I don't know now with Steve, how we wanna do this, if we wanna assign people to certain things in the past. Each board member was assigned, like Kelsey last year was in charge of T-ball, now she's taking over soccer.
I've done so much to help
And
you.
it's pool and help with softball. I don't know, Steve, what are your thoughts? Do you want that, or do you want to, we just kinda help?
No. I honestly don't. Like, as far as making up a team, I feel like that's more of a, you sit down with the coaches type thing and kind of go from there, especially T-ball. Some of those, you want to group some of the kids together that at least parents know each other. And, especially when they've never played before type thing. But I'll probably, again, ask Mr. Reich, which ones are the higher athletic ones, just make sure it's not all on there. If we want to do the age level thing, I'm fine with that. I don't know. Like you said, I think you fall into the same group of kids repeatedly, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess, at that age, because
I can help you split them up too.
right, and I feel like all of us have enough kids in that.
Right, but also I would say ask board members.
Right, yeah.
Too, so it's not.
Right, yeah.
We don't want it to just be Chad.
Right, sorry.
But I feel like whoever sends them as coaches at least has an idea of the kids that are signed up, I think. The one thing I will say is Worthing has contacted, and they are, I don't know how to go about that.
For field use.
Well, no, they are losing kids to Lennox Park and Rec, and me being from the school, I'm not exactly sure why it's so split. I know Worthing probably has some, the Worthing team pride type things. I don't know. My kid goes to Worthing, but we did Worthing Park and Rec one year, and it just
We played Worthing and T-ball one year, they had 27 kids out on the field.
and that's what. And we did Worthing T-ball once, and we had 7 kids.
Legitimately, there was
And that's
so
why
many of them.
I don't know how to respond to her. Like for example, the notes, I did not send them to the Worthing School District because I didn't want to step on their Park and Rec toes.
Well, there's a 10U kid that signed up, that's on our
Oh,
basketball team.
no, yeah, right. And I know all of the kids. Last year, I think I had 5 or 6 Worthing kids on the 8U team I coached for boys. So, I don't know how to politely say, hey, would you just like to not be there and we'll take your kid?
Have you guys as a board ever reached out to them to see if they want to combine with us? And
Yeah, we've tried a couple times with that. It was probably 3 years ago, and they were very adamant that they're Worthing. They have their fields. They're proud of their fields. They're proud of being Worthing, and they want their teams. Their kids live there. Their parents want them to play there, and then that's where it came. Because we had quite a few discussions, and there was no movement. I don't know if it's anything now, but that was a few years ago. There was zero movement.
I know their lower numbers like 8U.
But they have a lot more players. 3 years ago they still had more teams.
Right. And 8U and lower right now is struggling hard. So I don't know what to.
Yeah, I think we'd be happy to take those kids if they wanted to play here.
And they are already signed. The ones already signed up. I know they do. I can look through and be like, Worthing kid. Chris Griffin goes there. He knows them all. So.
And we've always allowed them, and I think, it ultimately comes down to the parents' decision. I don't think we could ever say, sorry, you're from Worthing, they want to have their own teams, you gotta join there. Because they're in our school district, and if we're gonna be inclusive of Chancellor, I think we have to keep Worthing the same.
But my next question is, with that new rule we put in place
I
for
know
travel
that's
teams,
what I was. Yeah.
now that we have Worthing, say Worthing has a 10U team, and this kid that I know comes over and plays in Lennox, are we gonna allow him to try out for the travel
He
team?
can't because they have a team. But he's in our school
Yes.
district.
But he's in our school district, so that's where it gets a little hairy.
I think it's only if they're outside of our school district that we're applying that rule.
Yeah.
Well, then you should make sure that it defines that and says school district and not just town.
All my notes here say school district.
Kelsey's taking diligent notes.
Or we could just
She's gonna-
advertise, just make them all.
Well, I didn't know if we wanted to, like you guys had discussions, do we want to try to approach?
I think it's worth trying again because their numbers are really low.
I know they're, I coached, it was been 2 years ago, their T-ball, and I think we had 10, and that was boys and girls.
And I think they even go down to 4-year-olds,
Yeah.
right there.
Yep, and that was 4 through 6.
Yeah. Because Rhea played over there because it was 4 and it wasn't 4 here. So she played over here and then she came over and played over here.
And that's what we reported.
Well, and if they're interested in combining those kids, and, I mean, we can play some of the games there, we can practice there,
And that's what I think they have 3 fields, so like if we get the, field space,
Yeah.
they got 3 fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanna approach that discussion, I think that's fine. I don't know that they'll completely end their program.
No, right, and
That way you at least offer, like, hey, we can combine and we could split games and practices between, and, as long as it works for the coaches. All right, anything else?
I just wanna make sure we all agree on how I have this written out.
Okay.
I said that we do have a policy in place stating that kids from towns outside of the Lennox school district are welcome to play in our rec program. Johnson motioned to create a policy to let kids outside of the Lennox school district try out for tournament team as long as they do not have a team in their hometown to play at. We also have the right to review each registrant from outside of the school district to make sure that they will not affect which division we play.
Sounds great. Spot on.
I think that sounds good. All right, anything else? One more thing, sorry, I just remembered this. So I noticed that the high school team was looking for concessions for like the 19th. I didn't know they started that early.
19th of what?
This month.
Not February.
It said February 19th on the Facebook post.
Oh, that's probably for the games and stuff,
But
isn't
it
it?
said baseball, so I don't know if they're
At one
looking
of
for.
the-
No,
Yeah, but that's school baseball.
There's probably concessions at a basketball.
They're running concessions at a basketball game that goes towards the.
And then they get like 40% of the top or
I
something.
was like,
Because the
there's no one on the
wrestlers.
field, I don't think that's gonna work. But just thinking forward to they usually do start really early when there is still snow on the ground, they
Yes.
start practicing in the gyms. And so just getting into the concessions and working with the baseball coach on doing an inventory. Are they gonna use anything from us, and then usually we'll sell back and forth. Yes, Chad?
I did ride with Drew Sweeter to an amateur baseball meeting today, and that did come up. He was wondering if, the Park and Rec was gonna handle concessions this year, or if he needed to. For their games. I think they have 6 home games.
So, what, Nate? What did you want us to do, Nate?
I would suggest having
So,
someone else handle those.
they can handle it. The only thing is we lose up the money. However, we haven't, in the past, the booster club's done it.
Right.
I don't think the Booster Club is doing it this year.
I don't know that we're gonna get the support this time of year from, we can't get support in the summer months. I don't think we're gonna get support from, it's not even our parents.
Do you think you could talk to Drew and maybe have his parents that participate in both of that program and our program, and then it would be their check mark for the summer if they work those 6 games?
Potentially, how do you police that? I mean, who's looking at that? To make sure that's actually
Steve.
happening? I don't know.
I would say it's a school function, they can do it. I'm being honest, I look at the school and I would say, that's, your.
The only problem we run into with that is they never get their crap out of there, and then we start some games when they have games, and there's,
There's some overlap.
that's the issue.
Was there a thing on registration to opt out of concessions? Now that you say
There
that.
wasn't, no.
Okay, it's not a thing.
Nope, not a thing anymore.
I just think it would be cleaner if if the city ran the concession stands the entire time. It might be a pain, but it's not like it.
If he can get the parents to commit to running them, to actually volunteering, then I would say yes.
I'll try to.
If he can do that,
We want to have this conversation with Drew and
Well, I was gonna say, I'll try and email Drew and find out the dates to see,
You want small number?
or yeah.
How come it's not treated like, all other high school events?
And that's what I
in
would
the
say.
past with the booster club did it, but I don't know if they just didn't
Then I
have the
would-
support from parents.
This is
I'm
just
not
coming
sure.
from me, I would say if they want concessions and it's a school function, they should figure it
The
out.
problem is, it's not a school function because it's not a
not
sanctioned.
saying what's for it.
Oh, but it's a school club. It's, I mean,
Club sport.
Yeah.
it's a club sport. It's based out of the school. They're using school facilities.
What school facility?
The gym to practice and all that. Like, I mean, I can't take my AU rec team in there and practice.
Sure you can if you sign up. We take our 8U honest. That's not the point.
You can get gym time in there.
I don't know. Looking at it as, like, I'm not going to run concessions for a football game. I know it's a
So
club
for
sport.
softball, like for high school softball. High school soccer, like fall ball, they utilize our concessions and the parents all run it. They do really well with all of, it's parent driven. It's been our product in the past, not always, but usually that runs really well because the it's parent driven. And so if we can have the parent support, because we're not gonna have a T-ball parent sign up for a freezing cold high school baseball game in March to help with the concessions. Anything else for the good of the cause? You guys are gonna have conversations with Drew, or do you need to?
Yeah, I'll text him.
Do I need to talk to Drew? You got it?
We'll just find out the dates at least, and then we'll, right, at least have a little more
He said
discussion.
there's 6 home games, and I'll bet you 50% of them get canceled. because-
Well, that's what I mean,
Because
so it's
there's
scheduled early.
literally snow
We're
on
gonna serve hot cocoa, I mean,
Yeah.
that's it.
They didn't do, but if they did, they'd make.
Right, that's what hot cocoa and coffee.
Oh, we get a peddler for.
Was there talk about bidding that concession? Or am I mistaken? Did we ever talk about that?
Doing what?
We talking about bidding out.
Bidding out the concessions? Did we ever talk about that?
Well, I recall,
Maybe I had a sign in my
we
head.
contracted out in the past, probably
Oh, yeah.
6-7 years ago maybe.
It was more than that.
Was it?
Yeah, we made double the money by doing it ourselves.
Okay.
A lot of our, so like some playground equipment, the concession that's there, the bathroom, all of that, that's all paid for by the concession account. And so if we don't do the concessions ourselves, we would lose a lot of our
Well, if it's that much, it's
fundraising.
definitely worth it then.
Because I think during that state legion tournament, didn't they gross about $10,000 or $12,000?
It was a lot.
It was a lot,
Yeah, we got a lot of concession revenue.
So if you get approached for a tournament, Steve, just say yes. Put it on the calendar.
Can do.
Anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Me, myself,
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Kelsey, I didn't want you to miss your spot.
I know, but I already have one, so
Oh, so you're
it's
already.
not a big deal.
You gotta get your name in there.
I was like, normally that's your jam right there.
Not normally I wait to talk till the end, but not tonight. Over and over.
What's the time?
Well, that's how I do it.
She hasn't changed her. I just wanted to do the last time.
I have. Thank you.
And then